Now, Mark Kingan has had his tenure as the acting head of the South African Revenue Service extended for another 90 days. Kingan has been in the position since Tom Moyane was suspended at SARS. The extension will be effective from the 14th of March until the 11th of June 2019, or until President Cyril Ramaphosa appoints a new commissioner for the Revenue Service. Former Finance Minister Trevor Manuel is the chair of a 7-member panel that's looking into possible candidates to fill the role. Now, Brand South Africa and InvestSA will be travelling to India, Germany and France in the coming week to embark on an investment roadshow that seeks to promote South Africa as an attractive and competitive investment destination. Dr. Judy Smith-Höhn, who's the General Manager for Global Markets at Brand South Africa, joins me in studio. Thanks so much for your time on SABC News. So what points are you going to be using to sell South Africa as an investment destination when you're travelling?
So this investment drive is the first time that actually sort of InvestSA and Brand SA are going to be going on a combined roadshow, and of course as the entity tasked with marketing the country, going with InvestSA and being able to do this with them is obviously a great opportunity. And the things that we want to be focusing on here would be supporting the message that InvestSA will be taking forward. InvestSA is going there not just for investment mobilization, but to also share information and update investors and potential investors there on policy reforms and policy programs that have been set in place. And the focus specifically will be on localization, so the triple BEE issues. It'll be on industrialization as it relates to that. It'll be on and it'll also be on intellectual property. So those will be the key areas that they want to share, because oftentimes what happens in these markets is that when you're speaking to investors here, they know these things already. But if we wanted to reach out to new investors, obviously oftentimes this lack of information leads them to have negative perceptions or misperceptions of what's going on. So this is really a nice way for us to kind of provide that information to those potential investors out there in all of those markets.
One thing that I'm sure people will want to know about is the state of Eskom. You can't expect people to come into a country and invest when they don't know if there'll be power for them to power their different companies and businesses. So what are you going to say specifically on that issue?
So certainly when we go there, we're not just going out there to gloss over things that are difficult. And to some of those questions, we might not have the perfect answer. But I do think that there are things that we would be able to say that, you know, things are being put in place. There are systems being put in place. We'd be able to speak about President Ramaphosa's recent sort of splitting of Eskom into these divisions in order to make it more efficient. Those are the kinds of messages that we'll be putting out there. And I think in terms of also sort of looking at potential and comparing us across the continent, of course, we can still vouch and we can still affirm that in terms of electricity supply, we're one of the best on the continent. Notwithstanding the challenges we face, of course.
Yeah. When you're overseas, there tends to be a group of people, especially with Brand, they said that they take with them people like Adrian Gore, who speak very highly about South Africa and bring out numbers to back that up. Are you taking a business delegation with you, and what does that comprise of?
We're not taking a business delegation with us now, but for example, we are engaging with key business stakeholders, local investors on that side. So for example, in Germany, we're working with gosh, I don't know the English term right now. It's the German chamber. It's the German trade chamber. Deutsche Industrie- und Handelskammer is what they're called. And they have a specific section that focuses on Africa, the Afrika Verein. And we'll be working very closely with them. And within that unit, there are German investors who are familiar with South Africa. So for example, we will have a Siemens representative engaging there and telling the positive story on our behalf and for us and with us.
And what feedback are you getting on South Africa when you're traveling and when you're out of the country in terms of what investors want to hear and what potential investors want to hear and what concerns they might have?
Well, you know, it often depends on which country you go to, because your perception of a particular country depends on where you're coming from. So, for example, if we're going to Russia, the concerns of a Russian investor are very different to the concerns of a German investor. I think we do have some insights that we're getting. This will be the first time Brand South Africa is going to Germany, so I can't tell you exactly what we'll hear when we go there now. But we do have some very interesting research that we conduct in-house, where we look at international investor perceptions of South Africa as a country with which to do business. And the European countries we focus on specifically are Germany, France, and the UK. And what we hear in Germany, of course, is there are certain messages we're getting from that research. We're getting messages in terms of political stability, and we can then go in and assure those people of the political stability and the strength of our institutions in maintaining or in sort of making sure that things are dealt with properly. So I can go into more detail, but I'm thinking.
I'd love that. Yeah.
Okay, so and I think sort of, we kind of look into disincentives for investment, and we look into incentives for investment. So when we're looking at Germany and France, for example, interestingly enough, over the past, so if we look at the last 3 years or so, when we were speaking to German and French investors 3 years ago, about more than 50% of them were familiar with South Africa, and the results we got was very positive. We got more positive results. They said it's not difficult to do business there. South Africans are easy to do business with. It's easy to engage there. Yet 3 years later, we happened to have a pool of people we were asking, of which about 2/3 were not familiar with South Africa, and we had much more negative results. So it shows you sort of familiarity is what breeds not contempt in this instance, but it really breeds advocacy and favorability.
Thanks so much for your time, Dr. Judy Smith-Höhn, who's the General Manager for Global Markets at Brand South Africa, joining me in studio there. It's time for a short break.